3 years ago, I stopped tilling my garden entirely, and that single decision gave me a 30% increase in yield across my tomatoes, peppers, beans, and squash. 30% more food from the same beds with less work, less time, and not a single pass with a rototiller. Before that, I was out there every spring doing exactly what most of us do, firing up the tiller, turning the soil until it looked like chocolate cake, and feeling like I was giving my garden the best possible start. I did that faithfully for over 20 years, and every single year I fought the same problems. Compaction by midsummer, weeds that came back thicker than ever, soil that turned to concrete after a hard rain. Then about 4 years back, I was spending a long weekend near Holmes County, Ohio, visiting a friend who lives near one of the larger Amish settlements. His neighbor Eli invited us over to see his garden, and what I saw stopped me cold. Eli's beds were dark, loose, and crumbling with life. He hadn't tilled in over 15 years. His yields were feeding a family of 11, and his soil looked better than anything I had ever managed with all my equipment and effort. That visit changed the entire direction of my homestead garden. Today, I'm going to walk you through exactly how the Amish build gardens that never need tilling again, while actually producing more food year after year. And stay with me to the end, because I'll share a technique Eli showed me for starting new beds on bare ground, even compacted clay, without ever breaking out a shovel or a tiller. It's so simple, it almost seems like it can't work. But I've tested it for 3 full seasons, and the results speak for themselves. Now, I want to be honest about something. For the better part of 2 decades, I was convinced that tilling was non-negotiable. Every spring, I'd go out there, tear up the soil, mix in my amendments, and plant. I thought I was aerating. I thought I was giving roots an easy path. I thought I was doing the right thing. And if that's where you are right now, I understand completely, because that was me. Every gardening book I read, every extension office pamphlet, every neighbor with a nice-looking garden, they all tilled. It felt like the only way to start a season. But what I didn't realize was that every pass of that tiller was destroying the very thing my plants needed most. And it took watching an Amish farmer who had never owned a tiller to finally see what I'd been getting wrong. When I asked Eli why he never tills, he didn't give me a lecture about soil science. He walked me over to the edge of one of his beds, reached down, and pulled up a handful of soil. It was dark, almost black, and it crumbled apart in his hand like a moist brownie. Little white threads of fungal mycelium ran through it. He looked at me and said something I think about every time I walk into my garden. He said, "Why would I tear apart something that took years to build?" In Amish communities, especially the settlements in Holmes County and parts of Indiana, there's a practical philosophy about the soil that comes down to one idea. The soil is alive, and it's doing work for you every hour of every day, but only if you stop destroying it. These are families with 8, 10, 12 mouths to feed from the same plot of ground, year after year, generation after generation. They can't afford to lose productivity. They can't afford to start over every spring. So they figured out through generations of careful observation that the less you disturb the soil, the more it gives you back. Not because of sentiment, but because their families depended on it. And modern soil science has now confirmed exactly what they've been practicing. The underground fungal networks, the bacterial colonies, the earthworm tunnels, all of it is doing real, measurable work for your plant. And tilling wipes it out in a single afternoon. That's not romance. That's biology. Here's what you need to understand before we start changing how you manage your beds. Every time you till, you're doing 3 things that directly hurt your yields. First, you're shredding the fungal networks called mycorrhizae that extend your plant roots' reach by as much as 700%. Research out of Oregon State University has shown that mycorrhizal networks allow plants to access phosphorus and water far beyond what their roots alone can reach. When you till, those networks are severed and have to start over from scratch. Second, you're flipping buried weed seeds up to the surface where they get light and germinate. There are thousands of viable weed seeds in every cubic foot of garden soil, and most of them will never sprout as long as they stay buried below 2 inches. Tilling brings them right up into the germination zone, which is why tilled gardens always seem to have more weeds. not fewer. Third, you're collapsing the air channels and earthworm tunnels that provide natural drainage and aeration. Those tunnels are better than anything a tiller can create because they're stable and self-renewing. A tiller gives you loose soil for about 3 weeks before it settles back into something denser than what you started with. So the first thing to do is simply stop tilling. I know that sounds almost too straightforward, but this is the foundation. If you're gardening in existing beds that have been tilled in the past, your last till should be your last till. From this point forward, you are going to build from the top down, exactly the way the Amish do it and exactly the way nature does it in every forest and prairie on the planet. Now let me show you exactly how to feed your soil without disturbing it. This is where the Amish no-till method starts producing visible results, and it centers on one practice: layered mulching, done consistently, season after season. Every fall, after the last harvest, Eli lays down a 2 to 3 inch layer of well-aged compost directly on the surface of his beds. He doesn't dig it in, he doesn't work it down, he just spreads it evenly and walks away. On top of that compost, he adds 4 to 6 inches of straw mulch, not hay, which is full of weed seeds, but clean straw. Over winter, that straw slowly breaks down, the compost feeds the microbial life below, and earthworms pull organic matter down into the soil profile naturally. By spring, the bed is loose, dark, moist, and ready to plant without touching a single tool. Here's the specific process I follow now, adapted from what Eli taught me. In fall, ideally 2 to 3 weeks after your first hard frost, spread 2 to 3 inches of finished compost over every bed. If you have access to aged horse or cow manure from a local farm, mix it 50-50 with your plant-based compost. That combination creates a broader spectrum of microbial life. Then lay down 4 to 6 inches of straw on top. In zones 3 through 5, where winters are long and harsh, you can go up to 8 inches of straw because it will compress significantly under snow. In zones 7 through 9, 4 inches is plenty, and you may want to pull back the straw slightly in late winter to let the soil warm faster for early planting. In spring, do not remove the mulch. Simply push it aside at planting time to create a hole for each transplant, or a furrow for direct seeded crops. The mulch stays in place between plants, suppressing weeds, holding moisture, and continuing to feed the soil all season. After 2 full seasons of this, I noticed my soil held moisture noticeably longer between waterings. By season 3, I could push my hand wrist deep into beds that used to require a garden fork to penetrate. Now, what I have shared with you today is a real piece of the puzzle, but it is still just one piece. If you are tired of fighting the same battles every season, if you want a garden that actually works with you instead of against you, then I would really encourage you to check out the guide I put together. It is called the 30-Day Amish Self-Sufficient Garden Protocol. And it is everything I have learned from my Amish neighbors over the last 3 decades, organized into a simple, day-by-day plan you can start this season. It covers the full 5 defense layers to build a garden that defends itself from the soil up. It has got the complete 4-bed crop rotation system that stops disease and pests before they ever get a foothold. And it includes the companion planting field guide, so you know exactly what to grow next to what and why. So click the link in the description right below this video. Just scroll down a little and you will see it. Or alternatively, if you are watching on a television or a computer screen, you can take out your phone, open up your camera like you are going to take a picture, and hold it up to the QR code you see on screen right now. A little link will pop up at the top of your phone screen. Just tap that, and it will bring you right to the guide. No typing, no searching. Either way works. I think it is the best investment you can make in your garden this year. Here's where the growing really gets interesting, because this next part is what convinced me that no-till wasn't just easier, but actually more productive. Once your beds are established with layered mulch and compost, you're going to plant directly through the mulch layer. This is where a lot of people hesitate because it feels wrong. We've been taught that seeds need bare soil, tilled and raked smooth. But here's what actually happens when you plant through mulch. For transplants like tomatoes, peppers, squash, and brassicas, push the straw aside to create a circle about 8 to 10 inches in diameter. You'll see that dark, rich compost layer beneath. Set your transplant directly into the compost, firm it in, water it well, and then push the straw back snug around the stem, leaving about 1 inch of clearance so the mulch doesn't sit directly against the base of the plant. That small gap prevents stem rot in humid conditions. For direct seeded crops like beans, peas, carrots, and lettuce, rake back the straw to expose a strip about 3 to 4 inches wide. Sow your seeds into the compost at the depth specified for each variety, water gently, and once the seedlings are up and about 3 to 4 inches tall, carefully tuck the straw mulch back around them. The key visual cue here is this. When your transplants or seedlings are surrounded by mulch but not smothered by it, you've done it right. You should see the green stem rising cleanly out of a nest of straw with no bare soil visible more than a few inches from the plant base. Every square inch of exposed soil is an invitation for weeds and moisture loss. The Amish keep their beds covered year-round, and that single habit eliminates most of the weeding that drives people away from gardening. Now here's where the yield multiplication really happens, and this was the part that caught me off guard the most. In a no-till system, your soil biology improves every single year instead of getting reset to zero. The fungal networks grow more extensive. The earthworm population increases, the bacterial communities diversify, and all of this translates directly into plant performance. But the Amish accelerate this process. They feed the biology directly, not just the plants. Here's what Eli does, and what I've adopted. Twice during the growing season, once about 3 weeks after transplanting. And again, when plants begin flowering, he brews a simple compost tea and waters it directly onto the mulch around each plant. The recipe is straightforward. Fill a 5-gallon bucket with water and let it sit uncovered for 24 hours to let chlorine dissipate if you're on municipal water. If you're on well water, you can use it immediately. Add about 4 to 5 cups of finished compost to the bucket. Stir it vigorously for 3 to 4 minutes, twice a day for 2 to 3 days. Strain it through burlap or cheesecloth. Apply 1 to 2 quarts per plant at the base, right on the mulch layer. What this does is flood the root zone with beneficial bacteria and fungi that supercharge nutrient cycling. The plants can access nutrients faster, grow more vigorously, and produce more fruit. Penn State Extension research has documented measurable increases in plant biomass and disease resistance in compost tea-treated beds compared to untreated controls. Eli once told me he thinks of compost tea as a thank you to the worms and the fungi for the work they do all season. I think of it as the cheapest fertilizer I've ever used that actually makes the soil better instead of depleting it. If you're in zones 8 or 9 where summer heat can dry out compost tea applications quickly, apply in the early morning and add an extra inch of straw mulch after application to hold that moisture in. The last thing to understand about maintaining this system long-term is that the Amish treat their mulch layer as a living, evolving component of the garden, not a one-time addition. Throughout the growing season, as the straw breaks down and thins, they top it up. Whenever they see bare soil appearing between plants, they add another 2 to 3 inches of straw. In fall, the whole cycle repeats. Compost goes down, straw goes on top. Year after year, the bed rises slightly, sometimes gaining an inch or 2 per season, which actually improves drainage over time. After 5 or 6 years of this practice, Eli's beds are roughly 8 to 10 inches higher than the surrounding pathways, all built from decomposed organic matter. The soil in those raised beds is the richest, most productive ground I've ever seen on a homestead. He grows 100% of his family's vegetables, enough for 11 people, from a garden that's roughly a quarter acre. No tiller, no synthetic fertilizer, no tractor, just compost, straw, and patience. If you're starting from heavy clay soil or severely compacted ground, which I'll address with the bonus tip at the end, the first 2 years may feel slow. Give it time. The biology needs at least 2 full seasons to really establish itself. By year 3, you'll feel the difference every time you put your hands in the soil. Let me share some patterns I've noticed over the years, things I used to do that the Amish approach handles completely differently. The first pattern is tilling and amendments every spring. Most of us were taught to till compost, lime, and fertilizer into the soil to mix it thoroughly. The Amish taught me that surface application is not only sufficient, it's superior. When you till amendments in, you disrupt the soil layers where specific organisms live and work. When you top dress and let the worms and rain pull nutrients down naturally, each layer of the soil profile gets what it needs, where it needs it. I tilled in my compost religiously for 15 years before I learned this, and I wish someone had told me sooner. The second pattern is leaving soil bare between seasons. After fall harvest, most conventional gardeners clean up their beds and leave bare dirt exposed all winter. That bare soil erodes, compacts under rain and snow, and loses organic matter to oxidation. The Amish never leave soil uncovered, ever. Their fall mulching routine is as non-negotiable as planting day and spring. That winter cover of straw and compost protects everything the soil built during the growing season. The third pattern is equating loose soil with healthy soil. This one tripped me up for years. After tilling, the soil feels loose and looks great, and we assume that means it's healthy. But that looseness is temporary and artificial. Within weeks, it settles into a denser state than before, especially after rain. The Amish showed me that truly healthy soil is loose because it's full of organic matter, root channels, and earthworm tunnels, not because someone mechanically broke it apart. It feels different in your hands. Tilled soil crumbles and then compacts. No, tilled soil crumbles and stays crumbled because the structure is held together by fungal threads and organic glues that biology creates over time. The fourth pattern is fighting weeds with cultivation. Every time you hoe or cultivate between rows, you're disturbing the top inch of soil, bringing up fresh weed seeds, and cutting fungal networks near the surface. The Amish approach to weeds is to smother them under mulch and never let them see light. In the first place, I spent years hoeing between rows every week, creating more weeds than I was killing before I understood what the mulch layer was really doing. Now here's the technique I promised you at the beginning, the one Eli showed me for starting brand new beds on bare ground without ever tilling or digging. This is the part that honestly changed my homestead more than anything else, because it meant I could expand my garden onto new ground anytime I wanted without renting equipment or breaking my back. Eli calls it sheet composting, though you might hear it called lasagna gardening in some circles. But the Amish version is simpler and more practical than most descriptions I've seen. Here's exactly how to do it. In late summer or early fall, mow or trample whatever is growing on the ground where you want your new bed. Don't remove it, just flatten it. Lay down a single layer of plain brown cardboard directly on top of the flattened vegetation. Overlap the edges by at least 4 to 6 inches so no light gets through the seam. Wet the cardboard thoroughly with a hose until it's completely saturated. On top of the wet cardboard, spread 3 to 4 inches of aged compost or a mix of compost and aged manure. On top of the compost, pile 6 to 8 inches of straw mulch. Walk away. That's it. Over the fall and winter, the cardboard smothers the existing vegetation and grass. The worms move in, eating through the cardboard and pulling compost down into the native soil. By spring, you have a ready-to-plant bed sitting on top of ground that was never touched by a tool. I've used this method to start 4 new beds on ground that was compacted clay with a thick mat of fescue grass. The first bed I made this way, I didn't fully believe it would work. But when I pushed the straw aside in April, the cardboard was almost completely gone. The grass beneath was dead, and the top 6 inches were a dark, crumbly mix of compost and broken down organic matter. I planted tomatoes in it that first spring, and they outperformed my old tilled beds by a visible margin. If you're in zones 3 through 5, start your sheet composting by early September to give it the full winter to break down. In zones 7 through 9, you can start as late as October and still have beautiful beds by March. The only thing I'd add is to make sure you're using plain cardboard with no glossy printing or heavy tape. Remove any packing tape or staples before laying it down. The plain brown stuff breaks down cleanly and the worms love it. That's the complete system. Exactly how I learned it from Eli and how I've practiced it on my own homestead for the past 3 years. Stop tilling and let the soil biology recover. Feed your beds from the top down with compost and straw. Every season, no exceptions. Plant through the mulch and keep the soil covered year-round. Boost the biology with simple compost tea at key growth stages. And when you need new ground, sheet, compost it into a productive bed without ever picking up a shovel. Now, if everything I have shared today resonates with you and you want to take this further than one video can take you, I would really encourage you to check out the guide I put together. It is called the 30-Day Amish Self-Sufficient Garden Protocol, and it is everything I have learned from my Amish neighbors over the last 3 decades, organized into a simple day-by-day plan you can start this season. It covers the full 5 defense layers to build a garden that defends itself from the soil up. It has got the complete 4-bed crop rotation system that stops disease and pests before they ever get a foothold. And it includes the companion planting field guide, so you know exactly what to grow next to what and why. Now, there are 2 easy ways to grab it. The first way is to click the link in the description right below this video. Just scroll down a little and you will see it. The second way, if you are watching on a television or a computer screen, is to take out your phone, open up your camera like you are going to take a picture, and hold it up to the QR code you see on screen right now. A little link will pop up at the top of your phone screen. Just tap that and it will bring you right to the guide. No typing, no searching. Either way works. I think it is the best investment you can make in your garden this year. I put it together for folks like us who aren't just growing a few tomatoes for fun, but trying to feed a family from the ground up. If any of this shifted how you think about your soil and your tiller, I'd genuinely love to hear about it in the comments. Tell me where you're gardening, what zone you're in, and whether you're ready to park that tiller for good. Thanks for spending time with me today. I'll see you in the next one.